One of the things that came up in the forums a number of times is the idea that the image of God is something like the potential to be like God. This is usually brought up in the context of Eastern Orthodox theology, and it's genuinely derived. It's very much in keeping with the theology of the fathers. Certainly, Irenaeus was a big proponent of something along these lines. And the view is something like this, that human beings, by bearing the image of God, means that we are created to be like God. We're not there yet. Something's gone wrong, and that's our goal. And because we bear the image, it means that the goal is possible. We have a likeness to God, and so we are destined for unity with God. Two things I just want to be careful of on views like this. I'm not knocking it. I mean, it's not my view, but and I think there's certainly potential there. I just want to make sure that we don't go down one of two roads. The first road is the road in which, just like every other attempt to define the image of God, we use divinization, or potential to be like God, unity with God, as something that ends up excluding a large number of people who are human beings. And just as if the image of God is reason, then it's troubling that people who are, say, have maybe not the same cognitive abilities as others are somehow less human, potentially not even human at all. And that's a very dangerous road to go down. If that's what it is to bear the image of God, well, then some people are excluded. Well, if unity with God is, or the potential for unity with God is the image, then it depends on what you have to have in order to have unity with God. The way that you construct that is going to determine whether or not it is something that is exclusive to a large number of people, or if it's something that's inclusive of all humanity. Whatever we end up doing, I think that the scriptures indicate that it has to be inclusive of all humanity. Every human being has the image of God. So, whatever we say union or potential for union with God is, it has to be something that every human being is capable of, in whatever condition we find them. It can't be something that you lose because of brain damage. It can't be something that can be taken away because of oppression. And so, again, depending on how you construct that, I'm willing to go along. I just don't want us to fall into the age-old trap of making the image of God something that actually not every human being has. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, interestingly, when Irenaeus is developing a vision of the image of God as something like divinization or union with God, he's doing it against or in contradistinction with the Gnostics. And interestingly, the Gnostics are going to agree with Irenaeus on the end goal. They're going to agree that the purpose of human life is something like unity with divine life, becoming like God, being with God, something like that. But they're going to disagree as to the problem. They're going to say that there's nothing wrong with the image that we bear. It's just that we have forgotten it, or we've lost it, or it's this innate capacity we have. We just have to access it correctly. Okay? And so you can see then that what salvation looks like for Gnostics is going to be different than what salvation looks like for Christians. And this is one of the reasons that Irenaeus is going to say something like, the image of God is broken in human beings. We have a fractured image. The image is not whole. It has been damaged by sin or corruption or wickedness, the powers, whoever did it, and however it happened. Human beings do not have the capability on their own of becoming like God. That's the big deal. There has to be special access granted by a Savior. Salvation must come from without. It does not come from within. I just noticed that there was actually a couple of posts in the forums that seemed to me to be on the path to a Gnostic heresy. I could be wrong, but it seems to me that in our culture in particular, there is a strong push towards making the problem with human beings not something that is internal, or if it is internal, it's something that human beings can fix. And so a modern secular story of salvation looks to me very much like Gnosticism, where the problem is that we're broken somehow on the inside, but if we're attentive to ourselves and we seek out our needs and our desires and we look inward, and we're really assiduous about that, then we can overcome what is troubled about us. And that strikes me as problematic because it is 100% denying the need for a savior. This is something that Irenaeus would absolutely not have anything to do with. So if we just keep that in mind and we avoid any if we avoid those two things, the image of God is somehow exclusive, not all human beings have it, and the image of God is something that's totally fine, and we just have to sort of look inwardly to access it without any recognition of the damaging influence, the corrupting influence of evil. As long as we avoid those two different ways of going, I got no problem with a more or less Eastern Orthodox view of the image. And in fact, I'm definitely on board for a view that's going to push towards divinization and union with God, because that is the end of human life. And so I'm for that. I just don't want us to go off the edges to either side too far.